AEW Revolution 2022 is in the books. Another outstanding effort from our friends in AEW Wrestling. My God, what a pay-per-view. This thing was fun as hell. Just another solid night of wrestling. This thing was off to a great start. Had a couple of maybe hiccups in the middle. It slowed down a bit, but overall, I do not regret my $49.99 that I plopped down for this show. AEW always delivers in these pay-per-views. Tonight was no different. We had a debut tonight. We didn't have any title changes, no title changes at all. However, it was just still a really good night of wrestling, very bloody night, very violent night, but also a very fun night with a couple of surprises sprinkled throughout. So we will be getting into the entire card here, the results of every single match. I'll talk about my predictions, how I fared there. I think I got 3 matches wrong, maybe 4, I think 3. And we'll talk about the implications of all of the match results tonight, what it's going to lead to on upcoming Dynamites, and how we're now going to head into Double or Nothing in May, a show that I'm going to be at and I'm really excited for, especially now with what we saw transpire tonight. So we had an 11-match card if you include the buy-in, 3 matches on the buy-in, and I believe we had 8 on the main card, and it was pretty much fun from top to bottom. If there were any issues here or there, I think maybe some of the matches suffered from their placement on the card. Poor Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker had to follow what CM Punk and MJF did. However, you know, their saga is going to continue and is likely going to come to a head and blow off nearly 1 year to the day of their from their Lights Out match a year ago in a couple of weeks, when Thunder Rosa will likely challenge Britt Baker again on Dynamite. So there was a lot of good stuff here, and a couple things I wasn't expecting, like the ending of the Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson match, where we saw our buddy William Regal turn up in the company. Somebody brought up a good point. I wasn't completely totally paying attention. Were they referring to him as William Regal? I always thought that was a name WWE gave to him when he came in, and they didn't want him to be Steven Regal for whatever reason. So I'm glad he's able to be Regal if he is. The fact that he's aligned himself now with Moxley and Danielson and even cooled the two of them off and brought them together to shake hands. Don't know if that's going to be a tag team. Don't know if that's going to be a stable. But what I do know is I like it. And William Regal is now in AEW. Was kind of hoping to see Wyndham Rotundo possibly, maybe Cesaro or Claudio, someone like that. We didn't get any mega debut, but that's okay. Not every pay-per-view needs some big, huge, monumental, earth-shattering surprise. We got Regal tonight. That was very fun, and the rest of the matches pretty much stayed within the confines of the AEW universe, furthering all of their storyline plans, and I liked most of it. So you guys hit me with your grades in the chat. What did you think of this show? Grade me 1 through 10. You can do A, B, C, D, or F if you want. Whatever you want to do, let me know what you thought of it from what I've seen on social media, from the feedback I've gotten so far on Twitter, and so far here in the chat from the little bit I've read. I think the response has been pretty positive for Revolution tonight. So should be fun to get into it. Please hit that thumbs up button if you don't mind. Yesterday's prediction video and Winged Eagle podcast, all the likes disappeared. It's got to be a glitch or something, but like, I don't know, 100 or so likes just fell right off of that thing. So don't know where they went, but if you could do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button here, I would appreciate it. If you're a new eyeball, never been to this channel before, please subscribe. We cover AEW, we cover WWE. I will be here tomorrow night. Unless Raw just really shits the bed, I think I should come up here tomorrow night and at least discuss what they're going to do and what WrestleMania is currently looking like. So that should be 3 straight days of streaming here if you count yesterday, today, and we'll be up here tomorrow night. We're also here every Wednesday doing live watch-alongs for Dynamite, and we're here on most Sunday nights when there's not a pay-per-view doing classic pay-per-view watch-alongs as well. And this coming Sunday, 1 week from tonight, we'll be back here doing a WrestleMania watch-along. I just need to decide this week which one that's going to be. So please subscribe, like, shoot me a follow over on Twitter at GoodMicWork if you don't mind as well, and all that jazz. So let me just peek over here to the chat. Say hi to everyone. If there's any super chats to answer, I will do that. And then we will start getting into the results. I should sound check myself as well. Please subscribe. All right. Shoot me a follow over. All right, I look good. There, we sound good. Everything looks like it's a go. Right on. Well, cheers to you, whatever you're drinking tonight. I got a nice frosty Stella. If you're on the East Coast, I understand that it's 20 past midnight right now, and you might have to work in the morning. For me, I'm lucky. Not only am I on the West Coast and it's only 9 p.m., I don't even have to work tomorrow, so I can stream until 3 a.m. if I want. So if you guys want to have breakfast with me, let's just hang out for the next 6 hours. What do you say? I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. But we should have a good time. Unpacking this entire show tonight. Hello to Rodrigo Martinez. Good to see you. Alex Bryant, Big J, Sonny, Victor, JJ Leg, and Divine Ricks in with an early $5 drop. Hey, Greg. I definitely enjoyed this pay-per-view tonight. None of those matches disappointed. I give this a 9 out of 10. I also wonder what's next for Punk, MJF, and Wardlow. I cannot wait to talk about that match because the Wardlow stuff I found so awesome and it was so well done, and it just goes to show you how long-term booking and storytelling can pay off when you do it right. How many times have I said over the last, year since MJF has been teasing, treating Wardlow like shit, that Wardlow was going to go full Alex Riley on MJF and just beat the hell out of him like Alex Riley finally snapped on The Miz that time all those years ago. But they did the exact opposite thing. I mean, we've been watching this unfold and the fans have been waiting and waiting for this turn to finally happen, and when it does, I think Wardlow got just as big a pop with what he did, just as big of a pop with what he did, as if he would have completely annihilated and beat the hell out of MJF. Just him taking off that diamond, or taking the diamond out of his pocket, setting it in the ring and walking away, probably got one of the strongest crowd reactions of the night, and it was pulled off so well, and I loved it. As much as I love this pay-per-view, I want to try to not be too much of a fangirl. I don't know if I'll go 9 out of 10. I might go 8. I might go 7.5, 7.8. 8 out of 10 is probably what I'll give this show, just for a couple of reasons, which I'm sure we will get into later. But overall, hell, 8 out of 10 ain't bad. 9 out of 10 ain't bad. And I'm sure I'm going to be reading a lot of A's, B's, and C's in the chat as we go. I also want to say hi to Adam and Monique and Damon and Deshaun and Barry, a couple of monkey wrenches, and my friends are in here. That's good. Mongolian Chop, Andy Linnell, Robert Johnson. We got Damon Smith. I might have got you already. Michael Kumo, thank you very much for that $5. Hey, Greg, sadly, I'm assuming 19-year-old cat, holy shit, passed away yesterday morning, but it was peaceful, at least I guess. That's sad to hear. Well, hey, 19 years, man. I would do anything. Out of breath. I would do anything to get 19 years out of my guy. And for those of you who have been following my situation at home, my little man has made a complete turnaround. I was already expecting for him not to be here by now. But he has been responding really well to the medicine. He is not going to make it in the long run. I think this is just a temporary fix to make him comfortable, make him feel better, until he inevitably declines, because lymphoma and this fungal infection is not going to go away. But he's made such a remarkable recovery. It's just been amazing to have him back. So for those of you who have been asking me about the latest with him, he's doing better than ever, but eventually that's going to catch up to him, and I am going to have to face the really, really painful reality of what's going on. He's only 12. Michael, a 19-year-old man, I envy you. So I'm glad that you got to spend nearly 2 decades with your cat. Rest in peace. I am glad it was a peaceful exit. And yeah, that's always sad to hear, but at least you gave the cat a good home and some good love, I assume. So sorry to hear that, man. Good to see DJ Scandalous back in the house. I actually saw you scrolling through the buy-in show. I watched the buy-in on YouTube before switching over to BR Live to watch the pay-per-view, and I saw you cruising through there a little bit. Welcome back, and thanks again. Yeah, bringing him in, and you're right, having Regal come in. I've already mentioned Regal possibly coming in to AEW. I think I even mentioned him as recently as this past Wednesday when Tony Khan screamed his announcement to everybody. I said they need like a spokesperson for this. They need a Jack Tunney type of guy. And I've mentioned Regal coming into the company several times to kind of do what he did in NXT. And with Ring of Honor now returning, he could definitely be maybe a spokesperson for them. But it looks like he's actually going to be involved storyline-wise with Moxley and Danielson, and that is a fun prospect, I'll tell you that. We've got Eric, we've got Michael Kumo again with $5 more, elaborating on your cat story, 19-year-old cat. If I wasn't stuck at work right now, I would have ordered this event. Well, that's a shame that you have to be at work, but I'm glad you're here anyway, still chiming in despite having to work tonight, and it made you miss the pay-per-view, so I'm very sorry. And yeah, Barry, they called him William Regal on Twitter as well. I just haven't been paying that much close attention in the last hour or so because I'm getting ready for the stream and stuff. We got 10s and B pluses and A's, 8.5s, 9, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10, B plus. So a lot of you guys are in the neighborhood of where I am. So that's good that we usually think kind of the same. Rarely even you lost your cat of 17 years last year. Man, I would kill to get 17 years out of my little guy. but that would be 5 more, and that would be a tall order for him. I don't think he's going to make it 5 more weeks, but man, 17, 19, if you can get your cat 15 or above, consider yourself lucky. Any animal, for that matter. Consider yourself lucky. Good to see Edward Smith up in here. Detroit man, Detroit friend. We are both from that area. Edward, I still think you live there. But thank you for that $5. Watched it in a theater. That's right. You said that. Watched it in a theater. And Greg, you used the word right. Fun sums it all up. Solid A, 9 out of 10. Best show since All Out 21 and sets the bar for 2022. It sure does. I'm curious what the atmosphere was like in the theater. When I found that out, I did search around San Diego. There's one for sure that was doing it that I did see. Maybe one day we can try to do that. If anybody lives in the Southern California area, you want to meet up at one of these theaters and watch the pay-per-view on the big screen, kind of like the old closed circuit days back in the 80s. Maybe we can try that one day, but I also really enjoy being in my own home atmosphere doing that, so I can come up on YouTube and talk about it. But maybe one day we'll give that a shot because it does sound like fun. Bunch of wrestling fans getting together, and watching the show on a big screen. Why not? Fun is the key word. You're right about that, Edward. Well, anyway, we should start getting into the results here. Stephen Harris, Jose Lopez, David Parker, Sinister. And we've got Sonny, WWE Fan Forever. I got you. Everybody else that I missed, thank you very much for being here. Again, thumbs up, hard, smash it, tap it, mash it, hit it, super kick it, whatever you got to do. Get those numbers up for me. I would appreciate it. And we are going to scroll back to the beginning here, if I can get to the beginning of my notes and the buy-in, and start talking about this card match by match, because, man, it was fun. And they weren't even playing any games on the buy-in. I mean, these matches were really good, especially that 6-man that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So anyway, the buy-in opens up with Layla Hirsch taking on Chris Statlander. Now, in my predictions yesterday, I predicted Layla Hirsch, but then I haven't been paying close attention to the feud and stuff, so when they're running through the recap package, I'm like, why the hell did I pick Hirsch? It feels like Statlander is going to win this one. She is the babyface in this situation, although she wasn't acting like it when she was calling out Layla Hirsch or, giving her shit or trolling or ribbing her for being an orphan or whatever that was. So I was like, well, that's kind of uncharacteristic, but, you're supposed to hate the person you're feuding with, so you're probably going to try to hit them emotionally where it hurts the most. So that's why Statlander was doing that. But I thought that once the match started that I was probably going to be wrong on my prediction. But Layla Hirsch cheated. She used like the turnbuckle attachment. She somehow got her hands on one of those and whacked Statlander across the face while the referee's back was turned. And she covered her and got the win. So Layla Hirsch beat Statlander on the buy-in. Then we get Don Callis coming out, but he comes out to Kenny Omega's music. So Kenny Omega's music hits. Everybody thinks Kenny's coming out. Turns out to be Don Callis instead. He's dressed like an absolute fool, and he's basically teasing the inevitable return of Kenny Omega. This really made me happy to see him, because this tells me Omega's going to be back in the fold probably really soon, and that's going to make the whole situation with the Bucks and Adam Cole very interesting, especially when Callis went on to talk about the main event and how confident he is that Adam Cole will be the new AEW champion at Night's End. So I kind of thought this was a tease for us to see Kenny Omega in the main event. I thought maybe he would show up and interfere or something like that, but we didn't get that. But either way, it looks like Omega is definitely on his way back after Don Callis came out and cut his "You People" promo. And that guy is such a fucking jackal. What a virus he is. After that, we had Hook taking on QT Marshall. This looked like some kid beating the shit out of his uncle is what it looked like. Hilarious. Red Drum for the win. This match wasn't going to go any other way. Hook all the way, baby. I'd say, one more year? He's probably going to squash Roman Reigns next year in the main event of WrestleMania. Most likely. That's the only direction I can see him going in. And then after that, the final match on the buy-in was the 6-man match. House of Black taking on Death Triangle. Now, Death Triangle on Friday, on Rampage, introduced Eric Redbeard to the group. So he's now on their side. And when this match started, both these entrances were pretty cool too. And when the match started, it became clear that they were going to be pitting Brody King and Eric Redbeard against each other, and they had a couple of run-ins during the match. Now, this entire match was so fun. Crazy spots, lots of action despite the size that's in this match. There's so many different factors because you got two mega huge giants like Redbeard and King, but then you got Pac, and then you got Malachi, and you got Penta, guys that can do all sorts of different types of moves and styles all happening at once. You got big, medium, and small guys all in there mixing it up, and it was just wonderful. It just flowed so well. The match was booked marvelously. The spots were fun. We had, I think the one that made me cringe the most at first was the Fear Factor to Malachi Black on the apron. That was gnarly. But when he got back in the ring, he wasn't the legal man. So Penta went to pin him, but since he wasn't legal, Buddy Matthews came in from behind, hit the stomp on Penta, but Pac makes the save. That whole little sequence there was really fun, and I actually thought I was going to get this prediction wrong as well. The finish was really cool, so I guess you've got Redbeard's got Malachi, lifts him up for maybe a choke slam or something. Black mists him in the face, and then he turns around and eats a knee strike from Buddy Matthews, and then the pile driver from Brody King. So it was like boom, 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 boom. He took shots from all three guys to put him down, and Redbeard did take the pin, but the whole match I thought was super fun and action-packed, and it really set the tone for the night because this is the buy-in. This is the free show that you can access on YouTube, and WWE's been known to do this too. They would put, the Usos and the New Day or some really, really athletic, great teams or wrestlers in kickoff matches, and a lot of times the fans are like, why the fuck is this match on the kickoff? This should be on the main card. Many people probably felt the same way about this match, but the match was still great. It was still fun. It felt like it already was the pay-per-view, the way the fans were reacting to it, and it was just fantastic. Cannot say enough good things about this match. If you weren't able to purchase or buy or watch Revolution tonight, this match is free. Go over to the AEW's YouTube channel right now. You can check it out on the buy-in. It was so good. And to see Brody King and Redbeard kind of battle each other a little bit, if WWE ever decides to go the big monster tag team, if AEW ever decides to go the big monster tag team route like WWE has done in the past, Redbeard and Brody King might make a pretty interesting looking tag team as long as they don't carry mallets around and they're referred to as the Hammer Brothers or the Bludgeon Brothers or anything like that. That might make a cool looking team. Who knows where it'll go in the future? But Eric Redbeard, I thought, was wrestling his ass off tonight. He looked like he was genuinely appreciative to be there, and he was ready to rock and roll. So he looked good. I thought the whole match was fun, and it's got to be so hard, I would think, when you have a match with that many different styles to be able to even put that together. I don't think my brain could, plan out a match like that. I don't have that ability. So props to those guys for putting on a really, really fun encounter to wrap up the buy-in. So we are now on to the main card, and they announced about 5 minutes before the show, or at least that's when I heard it, that Jericho and Eddie Kingston would be opening up the pay-per-view. That's going to be our first match, and that kind of surprised me. I thought Jericho and Kingston would come later on. I figured it would come before MJF and Punk, but I didn't think it would open. I thought we would get something like maybe the tag team match or something a little bit more action-packed, maybe even Moxley and Danielson. But Jericho and Kingston was going to open the show. I didn't think it was a bad decision. I just thought it was an interesting decision, and I was hoping that it was going to pay off and the crowd would be hot for it. And it turned out to be a great decision because from the minute that show started, this crowd in Orlando was ready to rock and roll. They were at the same place, right? This is where the first Thunderdome was. Am I right? Well, they did the Amway Center, then they did UCF, and I think the pay-per-view tonight was in UCF. So that's one of the Thunderdome places, I'm pretty sure. So the crowd was just hot for this thing right from Eddie Kingston's entrance, and he comes just marching down to the ring, gets right in the ring right away, and almost immediately nails Jericho with a just really gnarly half-and-half suplex, and Jericho rotated over and just landed right on the crown of his head. It did not look like a good bump for our 51 or 52-year-old friend, whatever Jericho is these days. Props to him as well for getting in amazing shape over the past few weeks. He looked pretty good in this match. But this match was hot from the word go. The fans were into it. They were on the edge of their seats right from the beginning. Once Jericho kind of recovered from that and it was clear that he was okay, the brawling continued, and these guys were way more fast-paced than I expected them to be. I thought this would be a little bit more closer to the pace that MJF and Punk would work, later on, but they were really moving around in there. Jericho's kind of an old guy, and Eddie Kingston's really never been known for his athleticism, but these guys were throwing suplexes on each other. They were moving around pretty good in that ring. There was a top rope Hurricane Rana that Jericho hit on Eddie Kingston that I thought was fantastic. The entire pace of the match was really good, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be a little sloppy. I thought it might even be clunky, and it was anything but. I could not have been more satisfied with the way this match went. They beat the hell out of each other, too. Jericho suplexed Eddie Kingston off the apron onto the floor at one point, and then Eddie would go for that spinning back fist finisher of his and hit it and go for the pin, but Jericho was able to kick out. Jericho hit a couple of code breakers in this match and a lion salt, all of which Eddie Kingston survived, and then Jericho winds up going for the Judas effect. And I love this. Kingston ducks, Jericho misses, and then Kingston hits Jericho with not one but two of his spinning back fist finishers. Jericho kind of goes down to one knee, and then Kingston locks in kind of a stretch submission, and Jericho eventually has to tap out. And Kingston has that almost like Kevin Owens when he won the Universal title look on his face. Did I really win that? He almost couldn't believe that he won, or didn't even know or understood that he won. It was just instinct, grabbed a hold of Jericho, locked him in a submission. Jericho had to tap out, and it was a completely squeaky clean fucking win for Eddie Kingston. And that makes me happy, because that's kind of what I said yesterday in the predictions, that Jericho can easily afford to put this dude over. Kingston is a fan favorite. Fans are always going to cheer for him. He's way past, his glory days. So is Jericho. Jericho has had such a run, such a career, and he can afford any type of loss. He can put anybody over, no matter who they are, and it's not going to do anything to diminish the icon status of Chris Jericho, where that might not be the case for an Eddie Kingston, especially since he has this streak going where he's never really won on pay-per-view. So I thought, I mentioned this yesterday, that this was the perfect match for him to win in terms of him winning the big one, for him to be able to have a feather in his cap on pay-per-view against a major Hall of Fame caliber opponent. That's going to be good for Kingston, because, this is something that nobody really thought a stage that Eddie would ever be on. WWE was probably never going to bring him in, and now that we have competition and we have another company out there, you're starting to get guys like this who have really spilled a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the business get their due and get some moments and get some notoriety, and that's nothing but good, in my mind. So I'm glad that Kingston picked up the win, and I thought the match was great. So way to go to those two guys. After that, the AEW tag team titles were on the line. Jurassic Express, or Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, I should say, defending the titles against the Young Bucks and Red Dragon. Now, I had this one wrong as well. I wanted to see, not only did I pick Red Dragon to win, that's who I wanted to win. I love Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Think they're great. But, Bobby Fish tends to get injured a lot. Both these guys are healthy right now. There's a lot of story going on with the Elite and the Bucks and Cole and Red Dragon. When Kenny comes back, that should make things interesting. And I was expecting Cole to lose later on in the main event. So I thought some of those guys, either the Bucks or Red Dragon, might pick up the belts just to add to the already existing dissension that exists within that group. But they went in another direction again, and I got no issue with that either, because this match was fucking amazing. I mean, they were off to such a great start here between that six-man that wrapped up the buy-in, then Jericho and Eddie, then into this thing. You were under the assumption here that we were going to be in for a fucking treat, and we had a lot of hours of wrestling left. So this thing was so much fun. The agreement that was kind of in place between the Bucks and Red Dragon completely disintegrated almost instantly in this match, and they were not really there to help each other out. They were out for themselves. They also booked Jungle Boy to look very strong. He had all sorts of shit going on in this match. He had a great shooting star spot that just looked amazing, but all the stuff he survived. He survived a BTE trigger, a high-low, and a championship belt shot to the face. Survived all of this stuff. And when the smoke cleared, the Bucks and Red Dragon both cost each other the pin a couple of times, and all that dissension basically canceled them out. And Jurassic Express was able to isolate Matt Jackson and hit him with the Jurassic Express for the win to retain the title. And like I said, overall, I think that match to me exceeded expectations. I didn't think it was going to be a bad match at all. All six of these guys can go, but it was even more exciting than I thought. All three of these teams had great spots. Luchasaurus was over like a motherfucker. The fans were chanting his name. He was doing crazy stuff, taking bumps, as standing moonsaults and throwing guys around. It was incredible. Fun, much like the six-man that we saw, at the end of the buy-in there. It had that type of energy to it, and it was just fun. So even though I didn't get the outcome that I personally wanted, I'm fine with them running with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy for a while. I thought that it was probably going to be a shorter run than this, but holding on to the titles, why would I complain about that? They're both awesome, and I'm happy for both of them. So we'll see what happens now on Wednesday as it relates to the Bucks and Red Dragon, how much internal animosity there is there, what's going to be the fallout from Adam Cole and his loss, and when's Kenny Omega coming back. All that should be fun to factor in to a lot of this other shit going on with those guys. But now Jurassic Express keeps the belts for now, and I kind of hope maybe they drop them to FTR. I hope that Red Dragon and Young Bucks just keep each other occupied with the elite nonsense, and then maybe our boys FTR can sneak back in the back door and get their hands on that gold again, because I don't think their first run was nearly long enough in my mind. So we'll see where they go from here. After that, we had the Face of Revolution ladder match. This one was kind of nuts, too. We had Keith Lee, Wardlow, Will Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Christian Cage, and Orange Cassidy rounding out the 6 competitors in this. I think it might have been maybe a mistake to have this many big guys in it. 1 or 2 was fine. I think 3 was pushing it. The match was slow. It was a little sloppy at times, but they also pulled off some amazing spots. So I was kind of like, not sure about it. I think we can all agree, we've seen better ladder matches before. Yes, of course we have. But they made up for it with some really great spots. And I think the most innovative one in the whole thing was, I can't even remember who was holding the ladders. I'm pretty sure it was Hobbs and Wardlow, but it might have been Wardlow and Keith Lee. I can't remember. But each guy's on one side of the ladder, and they're holding the ladder at each end. Cassidy comes in between. It basically grabs in the middle of it to do like a pull-up, but he winds up skinning the cat, flipping himself over, standing now on top of the ladder that the 2 guys are holding, and he's got his hands on the brass ring, and I thought he was going to grab it. That would have been a great finish, but they shook the ladder, and he fell down, and he nutshotted himself. But that was super innovative. I've never seen that before, and that probably took incredible balance and a couple of tries today in the ring when they were probably working that spot out, but it was easily my favorite spot of the entire match. Now, the finish here, well, they had a bunch of stuff here. They had a couple of false finishes where there was 2 guys on the ladder. I think it was Wardlow and Hobbs were both up there. Imagine that beef. And they both kind of had their hands on the ring, and then they both kind of just walked down from the ladder. I just thought it looked a little bit odd the way they did it. And you had Orange Cassidy doing all of his dives. Cassidy and the smaller guys in the match really helped keep the pace up, but they wound up, having a couple of hiccups there near the end, where I think it was due to the fact that there was just a little bit too much beef in the match. So Cassidy winds up diving over the top rope onto Christian, I believe, on the outside of the ring. And then you've got Wardlow and Hobbs in the ring with Keith Lee up against the ropes. Now, Wardlow and Hobbs go to charge Keith Lee. They're basically going to do a triple clothesline spot where they're going to clothesline Keith Lee over the top rope, and all 3 of them are going to go to the floor. Well, what happens is the only guy that goes over to the floor is Will Hobbs. So Wardlow then backs up, and he basically redoes the spot by himself, but he clotheslines Keith Lee over the top rope, but he doesn't go over with him. And then he's in the ring, and he's by himself. There's nobody around. There's a ladder right next to him. But he leaves, and he goes out to the outside of the ring. And I'm like, that made Wardlow look a little silly. He had the match won right there, but I think the original spot called for him to go on the outside of the ring so they could continue to brawl to set up all the shit they were going to do on the stage. So the fact that he kind of stayed behind, he should have maybe called an audible there and, maybe thought that through a little bit more. But at the end, it wasn't a big deal because they would get into some crazy stuff up on the stage. So everybody's brawling on the stage, and this is where we get a couple of really, really nutso things happening. So I'm trying to remember the order of this. This was all prior to Danhausen coming in. That would happen a little bit later. So when they're all brawling on the outside of the ring, I think this was done to set up and give them a reason to not have Keith Lee win this, which bummed me out. Keith Lee was my pick for this. So I think it's Keith Lee and Will Hobbs are up kind of near the announce table. And they're brawling up on the stage, and Wardlow charges them and shoves them both off into a couple of tables or a crash pad or whatever's down there. So Lee and Hobbs get taken out. So that told me right there that Keith Lee is not going to win. It's probably going to be Wardlow now, especially since he's responsible for all that carnage. So while all this is going on, that's when Ricky Starks is in the ring all by himself, and he scurries up the ladder to get the brass ring. But Danhausen shows up, crawls out from under the ring. He curses Ricky Starks and yanks him off the ladder. So that gets rid of Starks. And then Wardlow, he's now back in the ring, and he's climbing up. Well, I guess Starks is back up there. So I think, Danhausen curses him, yanks him off, but he finds himself back up there again. Wardlow chases him up, basically gets him in powerbomb position, and there's also a ladder bridged on the rope and the ladder they're standing on. And Wardlow just powerbombs poor Ricky straight down on his head. Between what happened to Jericho a match earlier and then this was pretty surprising, or 2 matches earlier. This was pretty scary. He just landed right on his head. It looked great, especially the way he folded over and sold it, but it was scary. That left Wardlow completely unopposed, climbs up to the top, unhooks the brass ring, and he wins. So he will face, I guess he'll get a TNT title match, but not immediately. He's going to face the winner of Sammy Guevara and Scorpio Sky, which I believe happens this week on Dynamite. Wardlow will face the winner of that probably on that March 16th. St. Patrick's Slam or whatever the hell it's going to be. It's probably going to be Wardlow and hopefully Sammy Guevara, and probably Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa on that show. So Wardlow wins. I think a lot of people had him picked to win this match. I would have had him picked to win this match if Keith Lee wasn't in it, but I really wanted to see Keith Lee win. But they took him out with Hobbs. I think Keith Lee will continue to mess around with Hobbs and Starks here for a little while before he moves on to something else. And now Wardlow is going to have a TNT title shot, and that's going to play very interesting into the MJF stuff. And I can probably bet that MJF will probably cost Wardlow that match against Sammy Guevara, one would assume. Putting the TNT title on Wardlow right now, well, I guess I could see them doing that as well, because then it gives MJF something to win, because MJF and Wardlow now are going to have a match. So if Wardlow takes the TNT title from Sammy and then MJF beats him for it, I could see that. But I could also see MJF coming out and costing Wardlow the championship. They could even do something where MJF comes out. Well, I guess Wardlow probably wouldn't need any help to beat Sammy Guevara, but maybe Sammy's got Wardlow really on the ropes, and then MJF comes out during the TNT title match and he helps Wardlow win. And then it was like, oh, what the hell? After what Wardlow did to him in the CM Punk match, but then maybe MJF tries to pull a fast one again. You would think fans would see, and Wardlow too would see through this. But maybe MJF is like, look, I was wrong. I had that coming. I deserved that. I treated you terribly, and let's just consider ourselves even now. You cost me my match with CM Punk. I want to continue to be aligned with you. That's why I helped you win the title or whatever, and then turn on him, and then it's revealed that the reason MJF helped Wardlow win is so he could beat him for the title, something like that. But I think that he'll probably just cost Wardlow the title when that match happens. But we're going to talk about Punk and Wardlow and MJF and all that jazz here in just a second. Then we go to the stage. Tony Schiavone has got a special announcement. Now, I believe last year they signed Christian Cage. He came out and did the whole contract thing. That was 1 year ago, huh? Can't believe that we're now starting to enter into multiple years of AEW pay-per-views where you have to think about what happened last year. As a matter of fact, I opened up my old project folder from last year's Revolution to pull out some of the graphics I needed for my overlay tonight. So I kind of like that we're starting to build pay-per-view legacies in AEW. So this time, and I hope this becomes like a Revolution tradition where they sign somebody every time. You know how like NXT at the takeovers, they would have some new signee sitting in the front row. This can be like the AEW version of that. So this contract signing and this new signee into AEW is none other than Swerve Strickland, who we already knew was coming in. It was pretty much leaked that he was signing or was going to sign, and Shivani brought him out. He said a few words, signed his contract. I think that's awesome. He's going to have some great matches. He's one of those guys that was on that giant cut list in WWE where you just shook your head, because I had just taken notice of him. Because he had been in NXT for a while, but it wasn't until they started, the promo stuff, the hit row stuff, even some of the camera work that they were doing with his promos and the angle and just how the promo was presented. I'm like, this guy's different. He seems really, really, in tune with how to speak to an audience and stuff like that. And I just think he's got a cool vibe to him. So when they let him go, I'm like, what are they doing? You're like, what the fuck? So I'm really happy to see him there and curious to see what he'll do. You don't have to say any of this shit about a bloated roster anymore. They got 2 companies now. So stacking up some talent, nothing wrong with that. Excited to see who he's going to work with in the crowd. Sang along with him, knew who he was, reacted to him. So it's not like he came out there with some dead reaction. The crowd was very happy to see him, although you got to take into account what city they were in, Orlando. He's a little familiar with that town. Next up, we had the TBS Championship match. Jade Cargill defending against Ty Conti. This match was pretty good, but man, I fell out of my chair when Jade Cargill came out to the ring. Holy fucking smokes. Now, I didn't even realize that it was a Mortal Kombat theme to her gear, but man, oh man, she just looked incredible. Probably the best she's ever looked. I didn't catch the name of the guitar player, the big guy who was playing her theme song, so she actually had her song played for her, and she just, I think, had gear of the night. It looked so good. I mean, Jade always looks like $1 billion, but tonight was just incredible. Oh my God. And Ty Conti looked amazing as well. She came out with Anna Jay and -1. Little guy headed to the back, but Anna Jay stuck around and backed up Conti at ringside. Interesting too, during the instructions, right when the bell rang, Jade grabs a hold of Ty Conti and just grabs her and kisses her. So I don't know if that was Jade's way of paying tribute to the Bam Bam Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor press conference from WrestleMania 11, or if that was sexual assault. Let me know what you think in the chat. So that was kind of interesting. And this match was like pretty good. Jade blocked me because I didn't even say anything that bad, but she blocked me on Twitter. So please tell her to unblock me, because I really don't dislike Jade. I think she's fantastic. And I think she is improving a lot in the ring. She's had a couple of outings now where I'd said, she's starting to really get a little bit more polished, and it's only going to get better the harder she works and the longer she trains and all of that. So when I see little improvements, that makes me real happy, because when it comes to just a professional wrestling look, and I'm not even talking about modern times, I'm talking about the history of the fucking business here. She is up there with Hogan in terms of just the greatest look I have ever seen. She is a Hogan. She is a Lex. She is a Batista. She is somebody like that. That's just, her look commands attention. I still am flabbergasted that she came through the doors of WWE and did not leave with a 10-year deal, just based on her look alone. Who cares if she can work? When you look like that, you got to sign someone. So her match tonight I thought was good. Of course, Ty Conti, she can scrap as well. And they were taking some, pretty risky bumps here. Both of them had a couple of close calls. I thought the frog splash that Jade delivered to Conti looked really good, really solid, very controlled. She definitely looks like she was concentrating on what she was doing, but that's good. And it was smooth and it looked good. And she hit it perfectly. Unbelievable. So she, I think that was a near fall when she hit that frog splash. Ty Conti had a couple of near falls of her own on Jade. One of them was a pile driver, and Jade's a big girl, so Conti picks her up and actually hits a pretty good looking pile driver on Jade for a near fall. The finish sees Conti, I guess she's up on like the second rope, and they've got those cameras in the corner on the ring posts. Jade takes out her feet, she falls front, and her face smacks the camera. She kind of sells that, and I think that goes into Jade's finisher for the win. So Jade retains in a pretty good match. Loved the way she looked. She looked incredible. Never seen anything like that in my life. So fucking crazy. And she won and retained the title, and the match wasn't bad. Hey, That's all I can ask. That's all I can ask, especially out of Jade, who is, undefeated, who clearly they're going to make a big star in the company. You don't want to see somebody like her really suck in the ring. So the fact that we're seeing improvements and she's getting better is really promising news, because they've probably found themselves a star in her. And we've heard the WWE's been eyeballing her and saying, hey, we should get her. Yeah, you should have thought of that before, you idiots, when you actually had a chance to sign her. So we'll see where all that goes in the future and how long her run is going to last. Who do you think will be the person to take the belt off of her? She can't be champion for a year, I don't think. I just really can't see her having a run that long. Although if she did, that would establish the hell out of her as a major player, and it would make one hell of a moment for whoever beats her. So whenever they get to that point, when that day comes, what do you think? Number one, when will that happen? Will it be before the summer? Will it be at Double or Nothing? Will it be maybe at All Out? Or will it be on TV? Before that, who beats her? Somebody currently on the roster or a newcomer coming in, maybe an Athena or someone else that we've kind of been waiting to turn up that could make a big splash by beating her on their first night and winning the title, something like that. Or it could go to someone who maybe who's been working hard on the roster and AEW's ready to pull the trigger on, maybe like a Shida or maybe even a Serena Deeb, who knows, after that whole saga wraps up. So I'm curious if AEW internally even has a clue who they think, if they have anybody in the back of their mind that say, oh yeah, if we build this and we set this up, 4 months down the line, we do this match, it'll be huge. Like, I wonder if they have anything like that, any ideas like that in place for when Jade's time is up with that title. Now, I'm curious to see how that goes down the road. Before we get into CM Punk and MJF, let me go back over here to the chat and make sure there's not too many super chats that I need to catch up. Just a couple. That's good. I don't want to fall too far behind on those. Where'd you go? Chris Ludecki, thank you very much, man. Appreciate that $5. Great show tonight, but to be honest, I just can't get into the Danhausen character. I get it's not a serious gimmick, but it feels too corny to me. Yeah, well, right now he's not doing a whole lot. A lot of people feel that way about Danhausen, but Danhausen got over because everybody likes Danhausen, and he kind of got himself over on his own with a very, very strange character and gimmick. I'll definitely give you that, but wrestling is strange and weird. Wrestling is loaded with strange, weird gimmicks. There's not too much of wrestling these days that is very serious. We have Effie's Big Gay Brunch and all sorts of other crazy, wild, independent shows and promotions putting on shows, doing things that we've never seen before, getting a little bit nuts, and just being goofy and having fun. To me, I don't see too much trouble with that. And Danhausen is a guy who deserves to have a contract for sure, because everybody just likes him. But let's see what he does. Right now, coming out just cursing everybody, I get it. You can only see so much of that. But I don't think he was brought in to ever main event a pay-per-view with Adam Page, you know what I mean? He's just kind of there to be a comic relief. I mean, I understand what you're saying completely about Danhausen, but I would hope you probably felt the same way about the Boogeyman or a lot of other dumbass characters that you wonder why they're even there. Sometimes they're just there to offer comic relief or to get yourself out of a situation in a match or interfere or do something. They're usually just there, kind of hovering around a situation, never really being the focal point of it. So from that standpoint, I don't really think I think it's pretty harmless, but I get it. You have every right to not like or understand a character. That's what being a wrestling fan is. So I got no issue with that. DJ Scandalous commentators redeemed that mess up by saying Wardlow needed to beat down the big guys more. Okay, yeah, because when he jumped out there, I'm like, he could have won right there. But yeah, they did cover that. I think it was JR who said, oh, he kind of got in the moment and he kind of lost his way. He didn't think that he could have just gone up there and won, but that's because they had that spot planned with Lee and Hobbs up at the announce desk that Wardlow needed to be there to shove them off. So if he would have just climbed up there and won the match, then, oh shit, we are now short, or now we're going to run long on time, or run short on time. I don't know how you classify that, but we just shaved 10 minutes off of our match accidentally because of a botch. So yeah, it's got to be hard. I wouldn't want to be in that situation if I'm young and I'm on pay-per-view and I'm in a match and you find yourself in a situation where you have to think on your feet. I'd shit myself. So I don't think I'd do any better as a young kid, super nervous. In a situation like that, I'd probably make the wrong call or just panic. That's what I would be worried about. Hey, good to see you, Joshua Aparicio. Thank you for the $5. Welcome back. Jade's gear was the character Jade from Mortal Kombat. Yeah, I knew it was Mortal Kombat. I just didn't know the character's name is Jade as well. Yeah, see, I don't know much about Mortal Kombat. I played the game in the arcade and I have it on Sega Genesis, but never saw the movie or anything like that. And I don't really know the characters at all. Sub-Zero, the guy that freezes you. I think that's the only guy I can remember from the video game. But I did see side-by-side pictures on social media of Jade and Jade. Holy crap. The outfit was duplicated perfectly. I like that wrestlers do that. Unfortunately, most times when, Asuka or the New Day or anybody is tributing anything, a lot of times I don't know what they're doing. Or Sasha Banks when she did Sailor Moon. I don't know who the fuck that is. So whenever they are tributing a video game or anime or something like that, I have no idea what they're doing or what it is, but it looks good and the gear always looks amazing. And tonight was one of the more impressive ring gears I've ever seen in my life. I don't think I'll ever stop putting over how good Cargill looked tonight. After that, we had the match that I was looking forward to the most, the dog collar match. This shit is old school. The whole entire build and saga with MJF and CM Punk has been pretty fun. They took that weird little turn where MJF suckered CM Punk into believing that MJF was traumatized as a kid, and it looked like their match was going to take another turn. And then on Dynamite, MJF hugs CM Punk and then low blows him, busts him open, puts the dog collar around his neck, hangs him from the top rope, talks shit to his face, really added a ton of heat to this match, which I'm glad they did, because if CM Punk went into this match without his, full-blown heart and soul into this thing, wanting to murder MJF because now he feels a little bit of remorse and sadness or sympathy, I should say, for MJF. How are you really going to be in a violent match with somebody that you feel bad for? So I was curious how this was all going to play out. And then on Wednesday night, I kind of wasn't expecting them to do it that quick. I thought whatever swerve or, whatever was going to be revealed in terms of what MJF is exactly doing here, I thought they were going to do maybe in the match itself. And I was wondering why CM Punk didn't see that coming. I thought for sure when MJF kicked CM Punk in the balls that Punk was going to be wearing a cup. I just think Punk should have been smart enough to see this coming from MJF, but he didn't. So you knew after Punk was bloodied like that, then they showed the promo that he cut Wednesday night on Rampage on Friday, and he basically swore that he's going to beat the hell out of MJF to where his mom doesn't even recognize him, and he damn near succeeded in that. So match starts with Cult of Personality playing. Fans start popping. About 18 seconds into the song, it cuts off, and MJF's music hits. So he fakes us out again. This fake out was good, but it wasn't as good as the one he did with Jericho when the countdown started and it looked like Jericho was going to come out to some Y2J themed stuff. And then when the countdown ended, it was MJF. That popped me. This was different. I should have seen this coming too, because just to play the song and then switch over to MJF, I'm like, well, that's kind of lazy. There must be something else going on here. So when MJF is finished with his entrance, the lights go out and something else starts playing. And without even knowing, because I don't even think I could have placed CM Punk's Ring of Honor theme in my head if I tried to think about it, I was immediately like, I'm like, this has got to be his Ring of Honor shit. It's going to be his music, and he's going to come out to his old look. And sure enough, when the music started and CM Punk emerged, he's playing his old Ring of Honor music that I guess they acquired the rights to. I forget the name of it. You guys can let me know in the chat here. And he had his old Ring of Honor gear. He had the hoodie with the 3 X's, and he had the shorts, and he was returning to old Ring of Honor CM Punk form, somewhere he hasn't been since 2005, maybe 6, whatever year it was that he left there. So we're definitely over 15 years now since he's done that. And that had to be a great thrill for him. He looked great. The fans were into it. It's not like he was coming out there to crickets. The fans knew exactly what that was. People were popping for it on Twitter. I thought it was such a nice touch, and he looked so great, old CM Punk in that young CM Punk gear. And I like how CM Punk, I can't think of anybody else in wrestling who does this. He really has 3 different ring gear styles that he rotates between depending on the situation. He's got the long boys, he's got the short traditional wrestling trunks, and he's worn the shorts. Now, this was more of his Ring of Honor shorts with the white shorts with the X's, but I think he's put on the shorts once before in a different setting. So I kind of like that he does that, because that's not something that you've seen or we've seen very often, not only now, but really ever in wrestling. The guys just have, different shit that they wear. The girls tend to get real creative, but a lot of the guys wear, by large, the same stuff. Kurt Angle's singlet might look different, but it's still a singlet type of thing. And Punk really changes it up. So I've always appreciated that about him. So he makes his old Ring of Honor entrance. That was pretty awesome. And like I said in the predictions, and like I said on Wednesday night when Punk got busted open, I said, I think the whole reason they're doing this, well, two reasons. It's twofold. One is that it adds just a ton of heat now. This is going to really, really piss off CM Punk, and it's going to give, AEW a reason to book him to win this match with everything that MJF has done to him. But it also pretty much ensures and guarantees that you're going to get a decent amount of color in the dog collar match as well, because it's going to be real easy to open those stitches up based on how much we saw CM Punk bleeding last Wednesday. So within minutes, how long did it go? How long was it? Like 15 minutes or, no, I'm sorry, not that long, 15 seconds maybe. It felt like it was like 2 or 3 minutes into the match, and CM Punk was busted open, and he was busted open hard. Ref kept checking on him. I don't think that he was anywhere near Eddie Guerrero at Great American Bash or John Cena at Judgment Day 05. He wasn't near those levels, but he was a true, legit Crimson Mask. And once MJF is able to gain control of the match and bust CM Punk open, he goes to the outside of the ring, grabs the microphone, gets on top of CM Punk, basically mounts him and starts talking shit to him, puts the microphone in his face, and CM Punk says, "Eat shit, Max." So that prompted an "Eat shit, Max" chant from the crowd. Eat shit, Max, repeat. I like it. So Punk is having none of that. MJF eventually winds up getting busted open himself. Crowd got a little quiet during this time, and I kind of thought this might be the case. I even thought about this during the buy-in when Death Triangle and House of Black were kicking ass. I'm like, man, there's a lot of shit still to come, and the crowd is this hot for it. I was worried that when we got to what I thought was going to be a slower match, like Jericho and Kingston turned out not to be, or Punk and MJF, I was worried that the crowd might be a little burnt out by the time we got to this. This is an 80s and 70s type of concept and match here. You got to remember, you're tethered to somebody. So I saw some people on Twitter complaining about the pace of the match. Boy, this feels slow. Yeah, kind of on purpose. You're tied to somebody. If you think like it feels slow, it's because it's supposed to be. And plus, with the story that these guys are telling, there's no reason to be running around, flying around, flipping and shit, because number one, you can't. You're tied to them by the neck. And number two, this is more of a personal issue where these guys are just going to be trying to beat the hell out of each other, maim and injure each other. And sometimes that's a little bit less exciting when you're just whipping each other with chains or punching or kicking or whatever. So it was a little bit slow. They couldn't go that fast. The fans got a little quiet for it, but they really did perk back up during a few spots in the match. Now, Punk wound up injuring his knee in this, and he really struggled with that throughout the match. There was one spot that I thought was so good that also injured the already injured knee of CM Punk, is when he tombstoned MJF on the apron. And when you look at the replay, it was subtle, but like the angle of MJF's head, with the way it was bent back, I mean, if he would have been 1 inch lower, he could have really gotten hurt. It looked like a sick tombstone, and it looked so good. That took MJF out. Once he recovers from that, he pulls out the bag. He knew exactly where it was, goes underneath the ring, pulls out the sack. Tony Schiavone immediately says, "We know what's in there." Wrestling fans know that when a wrestler brings out a bag from underneath the ring, there's probably bad news in there. Of course, it's the thumbtacks. Out comes the thumbtacks all over the ring. So I'm starting to think to myself, I'm like, has MJF taken any real thumbtack bumps before? Maybe in MLW or something. I can't recall any off the top of my head in AEW, but he's definitely had a few initiations, that's for sure. But this might be one of his initiations. It immediately made me think of Randy Orton and Mick Foley in 2004, that Backlash. It was right after WrestleMania, right? And they had that crazy match, and it was the first time I think I personally had seen anybody take like a bareback bump onto thumbtacks, because before when Mankind was doing it, they had shirts on and whatnot, but just to take it the way Orton did, I'm like, oh, wow, that was his initiation into the big time. And I thought Max was going to go through a lot of the same stuff here, but it took him a while to finally take the bump. And when he did, I didn't totally love it. But first, Punk takes a bump and he kind of even misses. Max gets the thumbtacks out, gets CM Punk up on the rope for superplex, or on the top rope for superplex position, hits him with a superplex, but Punk lands a little short of the thumbtacks. His ass lands in some of them and his legs, but not his whole body. And there was a near fall there. I think the poor referee even got some thumbtacks stuck in his hand as well. So after that, MJF starts calling for Wardlow. He's on the ropes and he's screaming at the entranceway for Wardlow. So he, let me read this. Okay, yeah, I want to make sure I didn't miss the MJF bump on the tacks. That's right. So that would come at the end. So anyway, MJF's calling for Wardlow. And when he started walking to the ring, he looked a little, even Jim Ross is like, he's got this weird look on his face. And I thought that Wardlow had a buzz. I thought he was wasted. I thought he was like in the back celebrating his brass ring victory. And so he's coming down to the ring all drunk like, and he's going to like mess it up. Like he's going to accidentally cost MJF the match. That's what I thought he was doing. So when he got to the ring and MJF's like, give me the ring, give me the diamond ring. And he's like, he's looking for it. I just thought that he was too drunk and he forgot it. And he was gonna be like, oh, fuck, I forgot it. It's right back there. Hold on, I'll go get it. And that would cause MJF to lose. And then on Dynamite, he would verbally berate Wardlow for fucking up and all that stuff. Maybe finally slapping him one too many times and Wardlow would snap. That's what I thought they were going to do. So Wardlow can't find the diamond, and then CM Punk grabs a hold of MJF, and he takes him out. And that's when Wardlow just looks at Punk. They kind of lock eyes, and then this was my favorite part. And then Wardlow just kind of goes in his pocket, pulls out the diamond. He had it all along. Fans pop a little. Then he sets the diamond down right in front of CM Punk, and they pop even more. And then he turns around and walks away, and they explode. My God, that was so well done. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we were all expecting at some point Wardlow to like go full Alex Riley on MJF, the way this guy's been mistreating him now for the better part of a year, even slapped him on a couple of occasions, and Wardlow has never ripped his head off. So we all thought when the turn inevitably happened, it would involve MJF dying at the hands of Wardlow. So the fact that they were able to pull off something just as satisfying, if not more so, than just pure unadulterated violence on the face of MJF, that is what storytelling and long-term booking can do when the fans are waiting for something like this. We've all been waiting. When is it going to happen? I think it was pretty safe to say that if it didn't happen tonight, we would start to say, okay, what the fuck? Tonight's when you should have done it, and you didn't do it. So they got creative with it. I didn't see Wardlow doing it that way. I figured it would probably have something to do with the ring because he's always the guy to pass it to MJF. He was responsible for MJF beating CM Punk the first time. So I'm not surprised that they incorporated the ring into it, but the fact that he was able to garner that reaction from the audience just by a couple of mannerisms without hitting MJF one single time and without saying a single word, and he had the whole crowd losing their minds, that is wrestling. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So CM Punk then picks up the Dynamite Diamond Ring, places it on his little bony-ass finger, and bam, nails MJF square in the face with it, and then MJF falls back into the tacks and basically kind of like does a Ric Flair bump, except not on his face, but on his back. And he goes down. I can't remember, Oh, okay. It was after that. Okay, I have that wrong. I'm sorry. See, I can't read my own damn notes here. So back up a minute. So once Wardlow can't find the ring with MJF, he gets hit with the GTS, and then he does the funny back bump into the tacks. I have my notes all jumbled up here. That's why I wasn't reading that properly. So that's how Punk and Wardlow lock eyes after Max takes the thumbtack bump. Then Wardlow gives the Dynamite Diamond to Punk. He waits for MJF to get up. Boom, hits him in the face with it, pins him for the win. I was all jumbled up there. I apologize for that, but it's been a long night. So everything they did there with the the buildup. Then you chain these two guys together. They have this bloody war. And then MJF goes to his bread and butter. Every time he's on the ropes, every time the match is ready to end, he calls upon his friends, the Pinnacle, whether it be Shawn Spears, but most of the time it's Wardlow. And this time, Wardlow, it finally backfired on him, and Wardlow paid him back for all the shit that he's done to him before, and he did so very simply by just allowing CM Punk to beat him. So now we'll probably move into, hopefully, Wardlow and MJF doing something and CM Punk possibly going on and moving to a different opponent now. I really hope so. If they did one more Punk and MJF match, I'm totally cool with that because I've enjoyed everything they've done. But I'd be also fine with CM Punk moving on to do something else and MJF focusing his efforts now on getting revenge on Wardlow. And apparently that TNT title match could still play a factor because if you, in kayfabe, Wardlow is bound to MJF by this contract, and even where his title shots are supposed to be given to MJF. Now, MJF said, I think last week on Dynamite, might have been the week before, he told Wardlow, he goes, if you win the ladder match, I'm going to let you keep your title shot. Out of the goodness of my heart, I'm going to allow you to keep something that you earned. What a nice guy that MJF is. So does he renege on that now? Does he go to Wardlow on Wednesday, say, guess what, big man, I'm taking your title shot. I contractually have that right. I could see that happening because, if you think about it, Wardlow is a babyface now. Sammy Guevara, I'm assuming, is going to beat Scorpio Sky, I think, on Wednesday. At least I hope he will. He might not, though. Scorpio Sky could win the title, and then Wardlow could just crush him the following week, and Scorpio's got a 1-week title run. I wouldn't hate that, but you could have Sammy retain, but instead of babyface Sammy going in against babyface Wardlow for the title, you've got babyface Sammy taking on MJF, who has taken that title shot away from Wardlow, and then MJF wins the belt. I could see that happening. I could see MJF taking Wardlow's place and beating Sammy Guevara for the title. Because when you lose a match of that magnitude, when you can bounce right back and win a championship, that really balances it out. CM Punk was able to beat MJF, move on to something else, and MJF is, no worse for the wear because 2 weeks later, he's got championship gold around his waist. And if he's contractually able to do that to Wardlow, in storyline, what would stop him? The premise is ridiculous that somebody would sign their life over to MJF, but if the contract is truly ironclad, then MJF can exercise whatever clause is in there, take Wardlow's place, boom, he's the new TNT champion, and then maybe Wardlow can chase him or something. Kind of makes me think something like that's going to happen with MJF, because if it just goes into a straight feud with MJF and Wardlow, I think MJF's going to have to get some sort of revenge on him. And like I said earlier, MJF could straight cost Wardlow the TNT title against Sammy Guevara when that match happens, or if it happens in a couple of weeks. MJF comes out and fucks Wardlow over. And that would be his measure of revenge. But since MJF was saying that he can contractually take away any title shot or championships or anything like that, or maybe he waits until Wardlow wins the title and then he makes Wardlow give it to him. They could do that too. I think actually that might be what the contract says. I don't remember. But either way, that TNT title match is going to play a role pretty big, I think, in this new program, hopefully, between MJF and his former bodyguard. So we'll see where that goes. And if you have any ideas for CM Punk's next opponent, I want to know. I would love to see him get involved in that Moxley and Danielson shit and Regal shit. Moxley and Danielson and Punk, that's almost too much star power for one group there, but it might be fun, especially with Regal at the helm. Who knows what they could do? Maybe a modern-day Horseman, a modern-day group that kind of resembles that. I think that's what the Pinnacle was trying to be, but you talk about the star power in this group, this is a completely different thing, and who knows what they'll do. But we'll talk about that in a minute, because next we have to talk about the Women's Championship match. Britt Baker defending against Thunder Rosa. We've been waiting for this. We figured that Britt would eventually, whenever she lost the title, it would probably be to Thunder Rosa. I think most of us have been calling that for many, many months now. They unveiled a new AEW women's title tonight. Britt Baker came out to the ring. She's got a brand new belt around her waist, a little bit bigger, kind of looks the same and the same style as the other one, but spiced up a bit. So this is their third go-around with the women's title, because the one they introduced and the one that Riho wore, a lot of fans didn't like. And then when they upgraded it a bit with the current one that Baker has, I think a lot of fans like that one better. And most fans are saying great things about the new one they saw tonight. So we are now on our third AEW Women's Championship belt, the physical belt, and it looks pretty good, and it looked great on Britt. So she comes out, new belt and all. Thunder Rosa comes out. She is ready to rock and roll. She's out there looking like $1 million as well. And the match was, it was just in a tough spot, because that was quite the roller coaster that we went on with CM Punk and MJF. And I think these two, maybe suffered a little bit from that, because the fans were a little bit quiet. It did not feel like anything like what they did a year ago in the Lights Out match, and it was just kind of a regular match here. And Britt Baker, of course, had all kinds of backup on the outside of the ring that played a constant factor in the match. Now, Rosa was still booked very strong. She had Britt Baker tapped out twice in this match, but in the end, the numbers game just caught up to her. She was not able to negate this distraction of Rebel and Jamie Hayter on the outside of the ring. Eventually got the best of her, and Baker was able to get a shady win. She cheated to win. Fans were very upset. Not all. Some fans were very upset on Twitter. I can't believe they didn't put the belt on Thunder Rosa. What is wrong with this company? They booked that wrong. That's not how you're supposed to do it. When you have a match like this on pay-per-view, you pull the trigger. All this stuff. Do you ever notice when fans are disappointed with a result, they start to pretend that it was improperly booked or some horrible decision was made? No, the person you just wanted to win lost. Doesn't mean it was wrong. It just means you didn't get the outcome you wanted. So when you really think about what they're setting up here, I am thrilled that Thunder Rosa did not win the title tonight. I picked Britt Baker to retain in my predictions. I was expecting her to. Why? Because who won their first match? I know it was unsanctioned and technically it doesn't count, but that Lights Out match was a victory by Thunder Rosa. She beat Britt Baker. After that, Baker would go on to win the title, and we all knew that eventually these two gals were going to have to come back together and collide again. So when you do that and you have this story, I think the longer these two stay in AEW, the longer their rivalry is going to span. They can be like the Charlotte and Becky of AEW, if they really create good careers and legacies for themselves. So if Thunder Rosa would have just beat her here, then she's just a flat 2-0 against Britt Baker, and that's it. I think their saga can go longer. And when you think about what they have planned in a couple of weeks, so I guess this St. Patrick's Day Slam show, which they did last year, which I believe fell on St. Patrick's Day itself last year on March 17th. And that was where the Lights Out match took place that Thunder Rosa won. So here with Britt Baker winning, they announced just a few minutes after this that they were going to have a match, I guess, this week on Dynamite between Layla Hirsch, who beat Chris Statlander on the buy-in, and Thunder Rosa. The winner of this match faces Britt Baker for the championship in just a couple of weeks, or 1 week from this Wednesday, in San Antonio, which they are telling me is Thunder Rosa's hometown. Am I right about that? And it's 1 day shy of the 1-year anniversary of their Lights Out match. That is what's called a cherry on top. That's what's called putting a bow on a beautiful year-long 3-match saga between two women that traded victories, and then one of them won the blow-off. It's pretty standard, typical wrestling booking overall in terms of the framework of it. So I don't understand why fans thought Thunder Rosa was supposed to win. Why? Britt's not supposed to get a win? I think Britt's supposed to get a win. Britt's even been pinned by Thunder Rosa in the lead up to a lot of this stuff, right? So I think it's time for Britt Baker to get a victory over Thunder Rosa. She can cheat her nutsack off, which she did, and now it gives Thunder Rosa a reason to have a rematch, and they're going to make Rosa work for it by beating Layla Hirsch first. Now she's going to go into what I hope is going to be a Dynamite main event. I hope it's going to be the main event of the show. What a story. Full circle moment for both of these women. They're in the main event now, and that's where you pull the trigger. Instead of doing it here, where it was really in an unfortunate match placement on the card, the crowd was even a little more dead for it. You put this match in front of a different crowd, in Thunder Rosa's hometown where you know they're going to pop and react for her, and you do it in the main event of a Dynamite on a show where the fans aren't already burnt out to hell from a whole bunch of other crazy shit they saw, and that's where you give Rosa her victory. She celebrates, fireworks, confetti, show goes off the air with her celebrating with her family and the whole deal. You have made Thunder Rosa. That will be your lasting image of Dynamite on that night. Unless they do it in the mid-card or they open the show with it. But I would hope that something like that would be a main event because Britt Baker has had a hell of a run with this championship. Britt Baker single-handedly has given credibility to the women's roster in AEW that didn't have the greatest reputation when it started. It's gotten better and better and better, and Britt has done a fantastic job as the figurehead, as their kind of Charlotte, their, kind of conceited, cocky heel champion. She has done a fantastic job in that role. So when you beat her, it should be a big deal. When you beat her, it should be on a big stage. And I want to see that stage in a couple of weeks in San Antonio on Dynamite in the main event. It's clean as a baby's ass, right in the middle. Thunder Rosa can beat Britt Baker for the championship. But to say that AEW made a huge mistake by not doing it here, I strongly disagree with that. I think they made the right call. So let's see what happens in a couple of weeks. Hey, if they don't wind up doing this and Britt continues to retain, then I'll be like, okay, that's a little weird, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I expect Thunder Rosa to be AEW Women's Champion, and when it happens, I want it to be a very special moment for her. Not that tonight wouldn't have been special, but the match and the crowd energy felt down, and I think if you put this match in a different atmosphere, on a different show, in a different city, it's going to be a lot different in terms of the fan reaction to what they do. As my cat scratches the post. So anyway, that's my opinion on Thunder Rosa and Baker. After that, we had Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson in their match. This one, of course, is basically happening because Danielson wants to align with Moxley, but Moxley needs to bleed with somebody before he teams with him, and bleed they did. If we didn't see enough blood in MJF and CM Punk, we got a ton of blood in this too. You could argue that maybe there was a little bit too much blood in this pay-per-view tonight. I don't think these two guys needed this much. I understand that Moxley worked the blood part into the promo and the build of this, but, it didn't seem like there was the need for this much, man. Maybe there's a little. One guy bleeding, not both, and not bleeding buckets, and Moxley was bleeding a lot. So the finish here was kind of another slower paced match than what we were used to. But around this time, I also started prepping the stream and stuff, so I wasn't paying complete attention to it, but I still liked what I saw and I enjoyed it. And they did a finish that I kind of called. I called a version of this yesterday. I said, what I expect to happen is to maybe a victory happen in a shady situation where one guy took advantage of it because, hey, it's a match. What do you expect me to do? You're trying to win. So maybe one guy holds the ropes, pulls the tights, takes advantage of a ref bump or something like that. And then after the match, like, sorry, too bad, and hopefully you can understand why I did what I did. And that will somehow tie into them eventually aligning. I kind of felt like it was going to be something like that. And it sort of was. Moxley, who I did pick to win, wound up pinning Danielson. I guess Danielson had the triangle choke on Moxley, and he does some sort of reversal or cradle. And Danielson's feet even go backwards and I think even touch the ropes, but the referee counts the full 3. So Moxley kind of got a cheap win there. Technically, that pinfall shouldn't have counted due to the positioning or Bryan's feet on the ropes or whatever it was, but Moxley wasn't even aware of it. So it wasn't like he took advantage of it. He didn't even really understand what happened. So Danielson's mad. He's bitching at the referee. The two guys come face to face again and just start punching the shit out of each other. So the brawl continues. They both start fighting. And then out of nowhere, I did not see this coming at all. William Regal storms down the aisleway and he just starts making a beeline for the ring. And I'm like, holy shit, it's Regal, it's Regal, it's Regal. He gets in the ring. He's physically pulling these guys off of each other, backing them up. And Regal can be very convincing. Regal is a guy who has respect, and he's got, a lot of history with both of these guys. So he's able to push them aside, calm them down, talk sense into them, and really, act as, basically their sensei, and is able to bring these two guys who are covered in blood, who are just trying to beat the shit out of each other, bringing them together and shaking hands. And Regal, with that look on his face that I haven't seen in a while, that looked very serious, and I'm so glad he's there. I was hoping he would come in to do something. I kind of saw him in an authority figure role. I'm glad that AEW, at least for right now, has avoided having an authority figure character on TV. So Regal coming in now as a potential manager, executive consultant, spokesperson, whatever he's doing here with these guys could be interesting, especially if this is a stable that's going to grow. Now, if Moxley and Danielson are just coming together to target tag team gold, okay, but I'd rather see it be something more important than that. So maybe this is the beginning of some sort of a faction, and if you got somebody like Moxley, Danielson, and Regal in the same faction, any young piece of talent that they may or may not choose to add to a group like that is instantly made. I mean, maybe not instantly made, but that is an incredible position to be in. So if you're someone young like a Daniel Garcia or any number of guys, any number of young talent that we've seen lately work with guys like Punk and Jericho and Danielson, any of those guys that get added to this group could be pretty fun. So I have no idea, but it could not be a group. I don't know. William Regal, I'm sure, will explain himself on Wednesday. Hope to see him. Hope there's going to be an interview. And I'm guessing it's okay for him to be called William Regal. I did not have time to look into the legalities of his name. Of course, when he came into WWE, he was no longer Steven Regal, or maybe he was at first when he was the man's man. Did they keep him Steven Regal when he was the man's man, or was he already William? I think he was Steven. It wasn't until he came back after his stint in the rehab, and when he came back kind of wearing the suit as the proper guy with the tea parties and all that, that's when they made him William Regal. But maybe maybe he has the Regal name because of WCW, so he can use that. And maybe you're not even allowed to trademark William. I don't know how it works. So we'll look into that this week, and I'm sure some of the websites will have maybe some info on that for us as we go through the week here. But that was an interesting development, one that I wasn't expecting and one that I thought was really, really exciting. So we'll see how that develops on Wednesday. Looking forward to it. This was our buffer in between the main event here. We had the big 6-man tornado tag, or at least what I thought was going to be a buffer. It turned out to be nuts. 6-man tornado tag with Sting, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara taking on the AFHO. And this thing was all over the place, impossible to write down. By now, I'm getting my lights set up. I'm plugging my mic in. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but I did see the crazy spots. Butcher and Blade show up at one point when they're brawling in the crowd, and they're helping out the Hardy family office. The craziest part came when Sammy Guevara and Isaiah Cassidy decided to climb up to, I guess, the top of the entrance tunnel. I don't know if it was a heel or babyface side. And there's 2 tables side by side on the stage. And Sammy fucking hits a Spanish fly on Isaiah Cassidy off the tunnel onto the stage with 2 tables set up. Not one single inch of any of this is soft. Nothing that he's jumping off of. The softest thing Sammy and Isaiah are hitting is the air. And they land on that table, and it was so incredibly ugly. I don't know how either one of these guys survived it or managed to not injure themselves here. They showed the replay. It didn't look good for either. Sammy appeared to kind of hit the side of his head because one table didn't even break, and Cassidy, I think, got the worst of it. It was Cassidy, right? Do I have the right guy? And it was just so unnecessary to me. I mean, I appreciated the effort. I thought this was a wild match, but Sammy is TNT champion. He takes enough risks as it is. I shouldn't even call it this because it was an outstanding match, but you shouldn't be taking chances like this in a bathroom break match. A lot of people in the crowd, me at home, was getting ready for the main event, going, taking my final piss, getting a new beverage. If you're on YouTube, setting up your shit. This match didn't have 100% of my attention, and it's probably a match that I'm going to forget in 3 days. So I don't think that was necessary, but it sure as hell looked good. But I don't even think, as crazy as that was my favorite spot. I found that spot to be unnecessary. My favorite spot came from Sting when he also decided to get crazy. This time he's up in the crowd. He's basically up on the, one of the little walkway tunnels on the first level there, and there's tables set up, kind of like the Hardy Boys bump at the Royal Rumble 2000 in the table match. You know what I'm talking about, the finish in that. So it's kind of like that. And there's tables set up. I don't even recall who was on that table. I think it was Matt Hardy. And Sting just dives off of the ledge through the tables, and the crowd goes nuts. And Sting, man, dude is 60 years old, taking bumps like that. I'm so glad that he feels the need to do that, but he doesn't have to. But he's wrestling, and he's doing some things that I just didn't expect him to do, and it warms my heart to see him like this. This is so much better than his final little run that he had in WWE when he's finally done wrestling for real. I think we're all going to appreciate and be happy we had this little time with him at the end, because he's been great in his role. His pairing with Darby and everything that he's done with him and they've done together has been fun. And when he first came in, I wasn't really sure how fun it would be. I wasn't even sure if I agreed with the pairing of Darby Allin in general, because I thought all they had in common was the black and white paint. Darby Allin, to me, has a lot more in common with Jeff Hardy than he does with Sting. So I wasn't even sure if they were a very good team, but they've turned out to be a great team, and they work so well together, and Sting doing that was fantastic. In the end, after all the dust settles, Darby Allin hits a coffin drop on Matt Hardy for the win, and the babyfaces get the win. Pick that match right, because I think if you're going to put Sting in the ring, unless it's to further some major storyline angle, I'm not beating him. If it's like a match like this, Sting, in my mind, should always win. Always. But if they have to beat him to further some angle with Darby or something like that, maybe if Darby ever wants to go heel, Darby is so small, it would be hard, and his style is so exciting. It's going to be almost impossible to make him a heel. I think his personality could be one. I think he's dark enough to be a heel, but he's just a little fucking kamikaze, man. It's really hard for the fan. It would be like Rey Mysterio being a heel in 1996. It just would have been like, what? You know, I don't want to boo that guy. He's awesome. So I don't know if that would work, but if they ever did some turn where Darby turned on Sting, you know, then maybe a beat him there. I don't know. But I kind of want them to stay friends forever. BFFs, y'all. And that leaves us with the main event. I got this match right, too, because I told you guys Adam was going to win. And he did. I even got the right Adam. So Adam Cole challenging Hangman Adam Page for the AEW title. I don't know what the gear was with Adam Cole. Is that something he used to do back in the day? He had some really odd-looking, robot-looking shoulder pads or something to his gear when he came out. The match I thought was fantastic. Again, maybe a slow start. That's when I took advantage of really getting everything set up here and getting my notes in place. And I started really paying attention about halfway through. So I only caught a couple of the early spots, like the pop-up powerbomb to Adam Cole on the apron, which I think was the hardest apron shot I saw of the night. Maybe second only to that super gnar tombstone that MJF ate at the hands of Punk, but Cole hit hard. So about halfway through the match, Red Dragon comes out. So this kind of got me excited because I started changing my tune. I started thinking that there might be a good chance we're going to see a title change here, because we haven't had a title change all night. And this is a pay-per-view, and you don't get a ton of pay-per-views from AEW. And it's unlikely, or it's rare, I guess, for them to have no title changes on a pay-per-view. Now, you guys are going to have to look at the results or the history or whatever. How many times has this happened before? I don't think it's happened very many times, if at all, for no titles to change hands. So I started thinking, I'm like, well, if Kenny's coming back in, you put the title on Adam Cole, that would create all sorts of really interesting possibilities with Kenny and the struggle between the Bucks, Cole, Kenny, and Red Dragon and all that stuff. You know, throwing the title in there could make that whole thing really interesting. So I started thinking that maybe it was really possible that Cole was going to win the title here, even though I thought Page was the guy that needed to win, and you should have him have, I believe, a healthy run if you want to try to build Hangman Page as one of your top stars in the company. I think his run needs to go a little bit longer than this. By the time they get to Double or Nothing, then sure, he's probably going to be dropping that belt and he'll be pretty ripe. But I figured he should probably hang on to it here. So I started thinking that he was maybe going to lose it, but especially when Red Dragon came out. But as we saw, things unfolded the way they did. So when O'Reilly and Fish come out there, Page, like an idiot, immediately turns his back to look at them, and Adam Cole hits him with a super kick to the back of the head and then hits him with a Panama Sunrise on the floor, and it looked like that was going to be it right there. He's just going to have to toss him in the ring and pin him. So O'Reilly and Fish continue to interfere. You get another Panama Sunrise in the ring this time. And then Adam Cole hits him with the boom and goes for the pin. And I'm like, holy shit, I legitimately thought this was the end of the match. And then Page kicks out. And I'm like, wow, he kicked out of the boom. And then Excalibur lets us know that I didn't notice this, that Adam Cole didn't lower his knee pad. So if he would have, maybe he would have been able to put Page out for good, and that's why Page was able to kick out. So I thought that was pretty good. Page went for a few buckshots in this, and one of them was countered with a super kick that literally looked like it went down the throat of Adam Page. It looked so good. Cole would hit him with 2 more right after that. And then he's going for, so I guess it's like 3 super kicks in a row. So he's loading up. This time he's loading up the boom correctly, pulls down the knee pad. But while he's doing that, Page crumples and falls, which Tony Schiavone goes, excellent counter. And it was. One way to counter that is just to lay on your ass. So Cole winds up setting up a table on the outside of the ring by the apron. So you know they're going to go through some sort of crazy spot here. Page, it looks like it's going to be a power bomb or a pile driver. Page reverses it and hits Cole with a dead eye through the table. That looked ugly. It even looked like Page might have injured himself on that as well. So we then get the Dark Order coming out now to even the odds. So they've been sitting back there all this time watching O'Reilly and Fish interfere. They finally come out there to even up the odds a little bit. And then we get a buckshot lariat to Adam Cole in the ring. He's down. Page goes for the pin. 1, 2, 2.5. And Cole gets his 2 fingers on the bottom rope, stopping the count at the last minute. Page would then get his belt buckle and tie Adam Cole to the top rope and just hit him with super kick after super kick to the face. Was pretty funny. And Cole, even with his hand tied, is able to hit a defensive super kick on Adam Page as well that looked pretty good. One more super kick to Adam Cole. He did an excellent job of spitting out his gum because it really did look like a tooth fell out, unless it really did. I don't think it was a real tooth, but it looked great. Page then pulls down his knee pad and hits Adam Cole with his own move, and then waits for Cole to get up, hits him with the buckshot lariat for the win to retain the title. I think the match really picked up speed in the second half. I think it was a little slow at first and then really got going at the end. And then when you add O'Reilly, Fish, and all of the Dark Order members, I think this was the right result. This is the result I predicted all along. But when we got to the main event, we saw no title changes. I thought they could maybe throw a swerve at us. I was hoping to see Cesaro show up. I was really hoping to see him tonight. And you guys have to tell me, I think we're right at the tail end of Jeff Hardy's no compete, so he can turn up anytime, maybe on Wednesday or the week after. So I think we're going to get some new faces in the company real soon. But in terms of tonight, I can't say enough good things about this pay-per-view. I thought it was a great show from top to bottom, action-packed, and it's what we've been come to be used to from AEW. Every one of these shows, they really come through. And even when they have weak parts in the show, you know, overall it's balanced out with so much amazing stuff. So excellent job again by the men and women of All Elite Wrestling. Our next pay-per-view on the calendar is WrestleMania. A lot of people are pretty underwhelmed by the card, but I'm optimistic. I actually think a couple of these matches might be kind of fun, and I'm a lot more into the main event than most people are. So at least for me, I think I'll be pretty entertained for the next several weeks in pro wrestling. I'm expecting some pretty decent Raws and SmackDowns. I think Dynamites are going to continue to roll, and we got WrestleMania coming up. So should be a fun next few weeks on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, all that stuff. And make sure you're here tomorrow night. I should be up here doing a review after Raw because I think there will be WrestleMania implications on what they're doing. And there might be a fair amount of stuff to talk about, and we might get some information on some of the stuff we saw tonight. So just making sure there's nothing else in the chat I need to worry about. Appreciate you guys being here. I know it's really late on a Sunday night, so if you are on the East Coast, that's probably why you're not watching and the audience is pretty low, and you guys got to work tomorrow. So I will shut up now so you can get some rest. Thank you so much for being here. I will catch you guys tomorrow night after Raw. Have a good night, get some good rest, and enjoy your Monday. I'll talk to you all soon.